Oh, this guy, can you see it? Hi, I'm Carol, and in this video, I'm gonna break down how I made this miniature rack. Welcome to my workstation. I know it's a bit of a mess at the moment. I'm in the middle of a project, so it's kind of a crafting disaster right now, but I did want to just make this video really quickly. So a while back, I posted a video of how I made this little miniature rack for a project that I did, and had a few people curious about how I glued it, how I wrapped it, and all that jazz. And so I thought maybe this would be a good opportunity to answer some of those questions by just revisiting that video and sitting down and just breaking it down a little bit further for you guys. So let's hop into that video and I'll walk us through the process. As far as the materials go, I used some pretty simple materials for this. I used some wire mesh and some crafting aluminum foil, along with some crafting dowels. Now I did use some PVA glue in this a little bit. As we go, you'll see where I used it and how I used it, but the technique is actually pretty simple. So I selected the number of dowels that I needed and decided the length and the depth that I needed it to be and started cutting them to size. And then I measured it up against the sheet of aluminum foil, and once I was able to gauge roughly how much material I needed, I just cut it exactly to the size and length of the dowel, and simply just began wrapping the dowel in the aluminum crafting foil. I took my time with this just to make sure that I wrapped it nice and tightly, creasing it as I go. To prevent the dowel from being too thick, I was careful not to overlap the dowel too much, just enough to hide the wooden dowel beneath it. As you can see, I have my knife extended out quite long and I'm cutting away from myself. This actually made cutting it a lot easier. Using the edge of a ruler here to help crease and seal the wrap. So I repeat the same thing for all of the dowels that I'm using, same exact technique, just on a little bit smaller scale for the pieces that were intended for the depth of the shelves. These were a little bit trickier to do since they were smaller. Again, took my time with it, wrapped it very tightly. Okay, so basically you rinse and repeat. You do the same steps for all the pieces that you need. Once the dowels are fully wrapped in the aluminum foil, I move on to wrapping it in the mesh. And simply just cutting it down to size and wrapping the length first. And the same thing goes for this wrapping technique for the shelf itself. So I tried not to overlap it too much, just to avoid it becoming too thick. As you can see here, this is a nice tight fit, so everything kind of just was pressure fitted into place. Didn't really need to wrap the sides too much because of how well it fit between the two bars. That being said, I do eventually add a little dab of PVA glue to the corners and onto the pieces just to reinforce it. And here I'm just making sure the mesh on the corners are wrapped around the bar so that nothing's sticking out. And you know, using my ruler for this really helped because if you've ever worked with a mesh material like this, it does have little pointy ends, so it can, hurt your fingers a little bit. So it did make my fingers a little bit tender. Wrapping it by hands, I had to be really careful not to prick my fingers. Just be warned that this can be one of those things that can prick your fingers if you're not careful. And I just repeat the same thing for all the shelves. Again, it's a rinse and repeat. And as you can see here, how this particular dowel on the shorter end here kept wanting to move, and this is where I decided to just add a little PVA glue to it just to kind of help it stay in place. Didn't want to put too much on it. Though it dries clear, it does leave like a little residue, so I tried to avoid using any like glue that's gonna show up in the final product. And so I was careful to like just put it in certain areas, under parts and things that I knew wasn't going to be seen. And here I'm just cutting down some more aluminum crafting foil to size to make the tubes that go on the shelves, which is how they attach to the bars. So So instead of attaching these directly to the shelf and then slipping it over the bars, it was easier to attach them straight to the bars and then also determine where, I'd like the height of the shelves to be and transfer that information over to all the other bars. So when it came time to actually glue the shelves to the bars, I had some reference in terms of where the shelves were supposed to go. So at this point, those tubes are just attached by PVA glue, and the shelves are just held in place basically by, pressure fit for the most part, with just a little bit of PVA glue to help reinforce some things. You may or may not be wondering why I decided to just make this miniature rack. Like, did I just wake up one day and decide I wanted to make a little rack? The answer is no. The reason why I made this rack is actually for a project that I was producing a while back. It covered a really tragic case in Texas, and it happened in a yogurt shop. I'll link that video here if you'd like to watch the finished and full video of that case. In that video, I recreated the yogurt shop where the event took place. And this was in the back of the shop with a couple of boxes on it. That's just part of the shop. Another thing that came up in this video was the glue. Now, the adhesion part of it was a little bit tricky. I've had a couple people ask me what that glue is, and if you noticed, I used a pen-like glue that had a UV light on the other end of it, which was actually this glue. This is the JB Weld Super Weld. It has a pen tip on one end, a UV light on the other for curing the glue. So I was able to attach the shelves to the bars, and within minutes, the project was complete. Also, here's a little tip. Once it's empty, you don't really get that much though, by the way, just so you know. Looks like a big pen, but it also actually doesn't really give you that much glue. But just a tip is you can literally take off this tip once you're done with it. That way, if you need to discard this, you can keep the light if you need to use it for anything else. If you have other like resin work or anything that you want to cure, you have a little UV light that you can use to cure it. So don't throw this out. There's another thing that you can use if you can't find this pen. The other alternative is a different kind of super glue, which is this here, and this is something you may be able to find at a craft store or online somewhere. And it works just like standard super glue, but then there's also this little glue accelerator that you can get. It's the ZAP brand, Z-A-P. You treat it just like any glue. Again, you put the glue on your the two pieces that you'd like to join, or the two ends you'd like to join, and then you give it a little spray, tiny little spritz just where the glue is, and literally in like 2 to 3 seconds, like it has a tight bond. It's quite incredible. I used it on some little flag stands I made for a different project, and there was really no way to cleanly glue that, but this is how I did it. And I used the little zap glue with the glue accelerator, and it was able to glue it within seconds. I didn't have to stand there and hold it for very long. It really just quite a good product. This video is not sponsored yet. I did mention at one point that I was gonna make a new video that actually shows me using a similar technique on a different piece, and I haven't gotten around to doing that. So in the meantime, I hope that this is enough information to kind of, I guess, guide you through your build if you're looking to make a little rack for your pieces. If not, if I wasn't clear on anything, please feel free to message me or leave me a comment. And that goes for any of my videos, any of the things that I've made. If there's something that you're curious about or you're wondering about, if it's a tool or if it's a technique, even just what am I making this for? Please feel free to hit me up. It's nice to hear from you guys. I know my community is small, and I'm hoping that it'll grow and flourish and thrive with crafters and curious makers like you. Thank you for supporting the channel. I really, really appreciate everyone who's just been trickling in and slowly subscribing and liking the videos, giving me your positive vibe and your love. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. I'll see you in the next video.